All right, you got it.
So hello once again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. People know me because I do a podcast called It's Good to Talk, and it is good to talk. People also know me because I produced this book over a couple of years ago about Stoney McGurn, his life stories and all that. You can get it on Amazon now. It's also on audio, which if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it. I will say a lot of profanity, so be careful of the language. I'm sponsored by Liffey Movers, a moving company here in New York City, and they've been around almost 50 years, longer than Jeopardy, and a big birthday coming up next year. I always have special guests on the show, and today is no exception. My guest today is Ibraham Greenidge, and he is an architect. Every one guest I have comes from a different career, different background, and I'm curious, and you're curious to know why, how, and what the hell got him to be an architect and not an accountant. But an accountant is boring. So, Ibrahim, tell us about yourself. Where were you born, and how did you get into this?
Thank you, John, for having me. It's a pleasure to see you again and to have this type of discourse. I was born in Brooklyn. I lived there, went to elementary school there, and then I spent most of my teenage years and early years in Elmont, a small town on the border of Nassau and Queens County. Okay. One of the reasons, I guess, to answer your other question, how I became an architect, I believe there are sort of three culminating events that happened in my life. The first, as a young Brooklyn kid, was witnessing the Crown Heights riots. The second was trips with my dad on the weekends to Roosevelt Field Mall, which is was one of the largest shopping malls in the world, in the country. And it was designed by an architect who I was a fan of their work by the name of I.M. Pei. And the third event was constructing a shed with my grandfather in the backyard and getting the experience of using tools, precision, getting your hands in the dirt, in the mud, and being outside and constructing something from nothing.
Okay, that's interesting because a lot of the people I have on, like, well, most of them, like somebody had to influence them somewhere along the line, be it music or be it sales. Like I had for last week, I had Michael Moran. He's a real estate guy, and his father taught him how to sell. So clearly, your grandfather was an influence at an early age, and I guess he taught you that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was a land surveyor. Yeah, my grandfather. He was a land surveyor.
He was a land surveyor. Okay, that's interesting. All right. And let's get into some of the meat of the topic there. You mentioned about a mall and all that, okay? So the malls were, I guess, in at one time.
Yes, we went to malls, right?
And yeah, the mall, yeah. So the malls are out now, I guess, and I don't know, what's back? High-risers or bungalow bliss?
Good question. I couldn't tell you what's back. I can tell you specifically what my practice has been working on. We are geared toward, like we refer to as passion projects. So it's a client who has an interest in renovating their home for a family member or new family member that's coming, whether it's an elder or a new baby. A client who has an interest in opening their first restaurant. A person who desires in creating a health and wellness institute upstate New York, so that people who live in the city can go up there and ride or get some steam room or some sort of health and wellness activities there. Those are the types of projects that, whether they're in or not, we propose and inject them into our projects that explore our health. At Bolt Architecture, we believe buildings heal people, and we try to make sure that all of our spaces heal people.
Good. That's interesting because back in the day in Ireland, people know me as well, actually, because I built and designed a restaurant called Mother Hubbard's, and it was the first in Ireland to be wheelchair access. And a lot of people ask me why and how, and do I have somebody in a wheelchair? And no, I don't, and I didn't, fortunately. But I was working on the project, and this guy drove in a car, and he lifted his wheelchair out, and he wheeled it up to a little food hut. And then he introduced himself, and he said, "You'll probably forget about me." And I said, "No, I won't forget about you." So I went back to the building site, because I don't even know if I had a drawing board. And we had the ladies' toilet and the men's toilet. And then I just widen the space out like that and create a disabled toilet. But that was the first of it when you mentioned about the passion project. And then I had to realize like things like the light switches that have to be lowered and like that, always thinking about if you're in a chair.
Exactly.
And I'll finish on that to move on with you. The most things that people in wheelchairs think about or hate are steps. So ramps became a big thing in all buildings. And I campaigned all over Ireland then for every new building must be wheelchair access. And I was fortunate with the local governments and all that it was passed. So when you go to Ireland on your vacation, all new restaurants and even the bank and whatever bit where you go is wheelchair access. And you might say, why not? Well, why not? But at one time it wasn't. And New York is not all that friendly either, by the way.
Correct. It is not.
Tell me more, Ibrahim, about your passion projects.
I mean, they're varying type. So we have developers we work with in Detroit, where he owns a former factory that produced and made trains. So you can imagine how large that factory is. That made old toy trains. Which is probably another dying novelty. So in that factory, we're converting it, and we're going to be able to have rooftop farming, indoor growing farming, to grow lettuce, to grow medicinal marijuana, to provide food for the community. There's also going to be a lab where people can go in there and learn new trades, new things. A maker lab where they can, we're trying to go back to the basics where people can use their hands again. So people need to create things. So where can they create things? Today, you can't find anywhere to make anything. So a lab where they can create things, whether it's through 3D print or through carpentry. A black box theater where movies and films and shows and things and events can happen. Automobile museum, office space, all these different components that we believe the community needs. We're injecting it into these spaces, and we're providing it as part of the design for this building, this redevelopment.
That is a beautiful project, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm very, very impressed. I look forward to visiting it. I hope someday.
Yeah.
What phase is it at now? Is it in construction? Or?
No, we're in programming and schematic. So we basically, what that means is we are getting and having conversations with the client and the end users about what they believe is the best thing to put in this building. I mean, it is, we live in America, and the world is capitalist. So with developers, they want to know how much money can they make. So that conversation is key to us having that conversation about what is possible versus what is economically feasible for this end user. So so with that, it's they're doing the analysis right now to figure out what it's going to cost. What sort of tenants are they going to be looking at to rent this space in this market that has been hit pretty hard? Everybody has heard about what's happened with Detroit. So we're waiting on them to sort of make that decision to figure out what's next.
I hope they include a small cafe and a large bar.
Yes, there is one in there. Yes, we got that. I got you. That's in there. Yep.
Guinness. They better have Guinness on tap.
They will.
That's a very interesting passion project, to say the least. But going back to what you had to study, say, in college, was, I guess, technical drawing, to say the least, but were you more inclined towards, mathematics, or was it more like a creative art aspect?
I think it was both. At a young age, my mom and my dad saw that I had a knack for drawing and taking apart erector sets. Some people may not know what an erector set is, but I enjoyed playing with erector sets and the parts. And my life has always been about parts and taking things apart and manipulating them and changing them. But the people always said, "What made you become an architect?" It's not something you hear all the time. No. And I didn't have the language for it until I went to and moved from Brooklyn to Long Island, and we took a test, aptitude test. And with that aptitude test, I was geared towards something in engineering. Once I decided it was something in engineering, I went to the school, told them that I wanted to take 3 classes. I took a CAD class, which is a computer aided drafting class. I took a technical drawing class, and I took an architectural drawing class. What I understood of those three, architecture was the subject that really, really grew on me. As I said, during this time, I was going to Roosevelt Field Mall, and I was looking at space from a very, very interesting perspective. And I'll say that from understanding the history of Roosevelt Field and how it was once upon a time the place where airplanes, it was once upon a time a former airport, and understanding how that area was completely flattened and converted into what it looks like. Not now, but then, to me, was amazing. Walking through these spaces, walking through these large, expansive environments and volumes really did sort of shift my idea about what architecture is and what's possible. And then, visits throughout the world where I got to visit in Paris for my 16th birthday. We were able to go to Paris and visit the Louvre Museum. And that was the second building that I was able to visit and walk through that was designed by IMP. And then there was this further sort of immersion into wanting to understand who is IMP. I wrote a report on it, and I discovered that he designed Jacob Javits Center. And I was going there every year, going to the auto show, because as I was always interested in cars and airplanes as part of like the engineering part of me, and I never died. So I would visit the Jacob Javits Auto Center every year and not know that it was the same architect who did Roosevelt Field Mall, the Louvre Edition, and all these other things. So it felt like almost it was perfect and something for me.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting to say the least, yeah. So just maybe a comment on, bridges, of course, I'm sure fascinate you, and tunnels fascinate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And they fascinate me as well for some strange reason. But I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate, but sometimes the Second Avenue subway is probably a good example. I don't know who the engineers were in the Second Avenue subway, but when they designed it, it has a bend, a curve on it. Mm-hmm. And what they forgot, I guess, I don't know why, was if they had taken the curve or the bend out of it, there would be able to be more carriages on the subway. Because if there are, say, more than 14, 15 carriages, it's not able to make the curve. Yeah. So that's one boo-boo. And then there was a tunnel in Ireland, in Dublin. And again, it amazed me that when they opened it, it was only, say, less than 12 feet high. So it wasn't able to take trucks, Liffey van line, like we're in that business. And if you in the Bronx, maybe you're driving along and you have a 13-foot high moving van and you see 12'6", watch out. Well, you have to reroute. So it defeats the purpose. And again, that tunnel in Dublin, I don't know why they didn't go back and just dig down 2 more feet. You don't have to go up 2 feet, you go down.
You can go down, yeah.
You go down and solve it. More questions for you, Ibrahim. Mm-hmm. My guest today is Ibraham Greenidge, and he's an architect, special guest on It's Good to Talk, and it's good to talk to Ibrahim. How did your company get the name Bolt?
I get that question a lot. Well, first of all, a little bit of history. So, long time ago, I realized I was going to be an entrepreneur and start a company. So, I had a company name that I loved, and I won't say that company name because there's another company that actually has that name.
Okay.
And this is sort of the genesis of me realizing that I'd have to figure out a good name that works. But the name that I had was a French name, and people always had a hard time writing checks to me because they couldn't spell it.
Okay.
And that was one of the first red flags I understood. Fast forward, I'm on my own, and my college roommate and I are trying to come up with, who's my business partner, and we're trying to come up with names, and neither of us wanted to use our last names or first names because in the event we have future partners or anything else, we wanted to sort of differentiate ourselves from that. And what more important component to architecture than a bolt?
Yeah. Okay, that's excellent, and I'm glad you mentioned that point because I had Tom Sanchez. He's from the United States. Yeah. And we talked about marketing and branding and all that. And my restaurant, I told him was called Mother Hubbard's. I didn't put John Healy over the door because when I sold it, I'm selling. Not only am I selling the restaurant, I'm selling the brand. Right. Nobody wants to buy John Healy unless you want to buy
Exactly.
In terms of transferring the ownership to someone else and to make it smoother and make it commercial and make it rich as well. When I saw your company name Bolt, I didn't think of the physical bolt on the door. Right? I actually thought of a famous runner. I think his name is Bolt.
Usain Bolt. Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I just thought you took this name because your company is fast and efficient and creative, all of the above.
Yes, exactly. That works too, because it's like, we're a lightning bolt. We want to create new energy to this profession of architecture. It's an important component. We're quick, we're receptive. So yeah, it can work for all of those three.
Definitely. And also, dropping another name, I had Michael Moran on the other day. He's one of the top real estate brokers.
Great interview.
And I did ask him a question about the high risers that are going up on the Upper East Side and all that. And I wonder if they take into account the peripheral services like the putting out the garbage, or maybe stores and delis and restaurants in the area and all that. Mm-hmm. Do you have a viewpoint on that?
What type of services did you say? You cut out a little bit.
Like if you go up like 24 floors with a building and you have a few hundred residential apartments, that's a lot of garbage to be taken out.
Absolutely.
And from a moving point again, getting back to Liffey, when we go on to moving jobs, and it could be a beautiful big high-riser, but now you have to go down a flight of stairs to get to the basement, to get to the service elevator, to bring the furniture up to Mrs. Bernstein.
What?
Yeah. There are a lot of boo-boos in
Oh, man. No, that's poor design, man.
That's poor design, yeah. But, that's poor design. They don't think it out. And the other thing, ironically enough, now that we are speaking and sharing this together, is sometimes something as simple as the width of doors. And then furniture, a lot of American furniture is big and bulky and all that. And again, whoever the engineer is, he doesn't consider the
getting furniture in.
And that's maybe where then the likes of IKEA come along and say, we'll break the shit all down and you put it all back together again when you get it in.
But you won't get it back out because it's going to be gone by the time you got to move.
Well, that's why there's another company that we have to use for sometimes, not too often, I think they're called the Saw Doctor, where they cut the sofa in half and put it back together again. Not a great idea, but it's a company in the city and they're busy enough with.
I'm sure they're busy. Yeah, I'm sure they're busy.
So great talking to you. I have Ibraham Greenidge, my guest today, and it's good to talk. That's the name of the podcast. If you want to contact me, subscribe, or jh4news@yahoo.com. You can get me. I've done lots of podcasts. But Ibrahim, tell us, if someone wants to contact you, how do they get a hold of you? Are you a website or social media?
Absolutely. All of the above. You can go to @BoltArchitecture on Instagram or Facebook, and you can find us. And if you wanted to email us, you can email us at boltarchitecture@gmail.com. So that's on Instagram @BoltArchitecture, on Facebook @BoltArchitecture, or on Gmail or email. You can email us at boltarchitecture@gmail.com.
That's excellent, Jack. Great talking to you today. I'm just thinking if I have any more questions. But people listening, if you have questions for me, send them to me, email them to me, and then I will get the answers from Ibrahim. And also we had Adam Cardona on. He was a massage therapist. Questions came in for Sergey, the scientist that was on here working in Sloan Catering. A lot of questions. I'll probably have to get Sergey back.
That's good.
Get him back to answer the questions, because medical science is not my field. I know a little bit about everything, but not everything about everything. So Ibrahim, thank you so much for chatting today. And I'll say goodbye to you now. And thank you for being on.
Appreciate it. Thank you for everything. Looking forward. Thank you.